Hi, welcome to I Talk Italian. I'm your host, Shawna Patruno, and you're listening to New Waves. So today we're talking about some really unique topics, something you probably haven't heard. It's really interesting. Amanda, you're my guest for the day. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. So my name is Amanda Frankeny. I am a registered dietitian with 10 years of experience. My focus is really food and nutrition communication. And I honestly just started my consulting business. I work with media, health insurance companies, medical professionals, really you name it, on multi-platform communication. I work on anything from smartphone apps, webinars, to in-person educations. And right now I'm super excited to work on a podcast with another dietitian. It's called the Food Dignity Podcast. And we basically have stories of those who might suffer from food insecurity and poverty share their story. And so, as you can see, as a consultant, my role is really incredibly dynamic. I'm a networker, marketer, writer, and producer, sometimes a speaker too. But my goal is really to discover where people are at and successfully meet them there.
Well, that's so amazing. So with this podcast, what exactly inspired you two women to kind of go out there and start talking about it? Because I've never heard of food dignity. I've heard of poverty and people not being able to eat, different things that I've heard nutritionists do as far as like breakfast programs for our youth. But food dignity isn't something that I personally have heard. So could you expand on that to just kind of tell us where that passion project came from and what kind of things people can expect to be listening to on your podcast?
Yeah, so food dignity, like what we have kind of defined it as, is providing nourishing, healthy food for everyone and allowing everyone to have access to it. So right now in the United States, many people who are in poverty, there's a tendency to not have grocery stores available in very poor areas because it's just not profitable for the company. But what's happening is there's lots of McDonald's and fast foods. So though people are going hungry on a regular basis because they might not have enough money to buy food, they're still undernourished. And so I met Clancy Cash Harrison, who has spoken on the stage of the United Nations. She's done a TED Talk. She's done a ton of global work on this issue. She really wanted the voices of those who are impoverished to get out into the community so we can reduce the stigma surrounding their stories. So
That's amazing. And I can imagine there's a lot of stigma in general. And have you met people and like, what are their stories? Like, what would be a story of stigma? I've had my own stories with stigma growing up, and I'm just curious to hear something that you might share or someone might share on your podcast.
So we had so many beautiful speakers, from researchers who focus on this topic to people who are actually in poverty. And so one of the gals we just spoke with, she was in an abusive relationship, had 2 kids out of wedlock. And she ended up having access to some food programs and childcare programs and got a scholarship to go to college. And now, because of that, the average single mom is capable of doing school and taking care of their kids and working over a 12-year period. She was able to do that with over a 4-year period, and now she's actually going to law school. And she finished law school and passed her bar, and she became a lawyer. So she was previously homeless, a single mom of 2 kids, and because of the help that she received, along with her hard work and her passion to provide opportunity for her kids, she has become a lawyer. And she's going to be an outspoken advocate for single moms. That's her goal.
That's so amazing. So you'll definitely be sharing like a lot of insightful stories, and I'm sure there'll be tips and tricks for maybe someone who's struggling in a very similar situation. I would have never put food dignity to like be like losing access to certain things, but there's like the hierarchy that it makes a lot of sense. Like if you don't have basic can't speak right now, basic access to your essential needs, you can't function. So how would you be able to
Mm-mm.
raise two children or go to school? And that's so funny because I would have never thought of that. So you're opening my mind to how essential that is. Growing up from a low income family myself, I never realized how much those pivotal things would have impacted my life. And often I look back, and these kind of programs are so essential for people going through that. So I think that more so now than ever, with like what our generation is going through and the change with 2020, I think this is needed more than ever. But I know you also have another passion project, which I'm super curious about as well, Amanda. And I wanted to talk about that going into our next segment. It's a little bit about body confidence, and you have a really unique approach with that. So I'm just going to hit a quick pause, and then we'll be back with I Talk Italian New Wave. Hi, welcome back to I Talk Italian. I'm your host, Shawna Patruno, and we are talking with Amanda about very interesting topics like food dignity, body confidence. And Amanda, I never thought about food and body confidence going together. Like that's something I've never kind of even heard. And you've got all these crazy, amazing ideas. What does that mean to you? Like, what is body confidence?
Yeah. So for some people, shame has manifested around food and their view of their body. And body confidence is really about shedding that negative and healing. Honestly about addressing the past, not holding on to it, delighting in yourself and your body and your behaviors. And so what we eat and drink and how we sleep and positive movement all affect how we feel. And so by seeking the things that make us really feel powerful in our own skin and being intentional about holding on to that mentality, that allows us to pursue joy regardless of our circumstance. So as you can see, like making peace with food and your body is as much mental as it is physical.
100%. Like, I definitely agree with that. It's so interesting because as a dietitian or nutritionist, do you find that our general public has an idealism based on social media, what their body should look like and where their body confidence stems from? Is it more appearance wise that you see a lot of people? And how are you able to redirect a client who maybe feels shameful for the way that their body is, even though they are eating healthy, they are taking care of their mindset, their mood, and exercising? And how does body confidence shift those paradigms?
Yeah, I mean, we have a generation who grew up on social media now. It's incredible. And I have spoken to a couple dancers recently, and there were a couple like food myths we had to jump into. I also talked about how beauty comes in every shape and size, and health comes in every shape and size. And that's kind of unique in that arena, because there's an expected body type that's supposed to jump and leap and spin in beautiful ways. It's very body centric. And so essentially what we talked about was I asked them who they followed on social media. What did they look like? Why did they choose to follow them? And we talked about really catering your feed with like enthusiastic people, people that bring positivity into the world, no, regardless of what they looked like. Because a lot of these girls did talk about the thin waist and the curvaceous body, but like very skinny body type. And it's super interesting to confront that want and need to have a feed that has all these beautiful filtered faces on it, and really turn that around so that these girls could have powerful role models, be the center of that feed. And we had an open conversation about that. So
That's so powerful. I love that you were able to say like this is maybe an area where you're not seeing as clearly, and how can we open your vision to like see more of the beauty in all of this, and like maybe that limited thinking that's been I don't want to say brainwashed, but we have been. I do think as a society we have been, and I'm guilty of it as well. I'll be the first to say that, as I also model and all of those things, like I do have a perception of what beautiful is. And I'm sure being in the dancing industry, they have a perception of what they presume as your body shape should be for dancing. Now, with body confidence, I don't know if you can attest to this or not, with being a dancer or something like that, are they often scrutinized, even though they are at, say, healthy, different roles that they may not get? And how is someone able to maintain body confidence when maybe they're missing out on things that perceive that they'll get to happiness, but by taking care of themselves, they might not get those roles? Did you guys touch base on that?
Yeah, and this was a younger group of people that I was talking to, but I do see in the dancing sphere, there's definitely a body type that's expected, but that's changing. A lot of people are grasping this body confidence idea, and they're truly allowing all shapes and sizes in this space, which is a really beautiful thing. I'm sure you've also seen this in the modeling area too.
Oh my gosh, it's something I still struggle with, to be honest. It is, everybody's like, it's changing. And yes, it's changing. We have like Kim Kardashian, but even Kim Kardashian, I mean, there's certain roles that she's portraying and everything like that. And there are height things that I've seen different models go through. I'm about 5'6", right? And in the modeling world, I think you're not supposed to be bigger than about a size 4. So during COVID and everything, I think I'm about like a 2 to a 4. I'm considered like at the high end, which is so crazy to me because I'm petite. Like the average weight or average size for a North American woman is size 14. So yes, it is getting better, but I still think with all the images and what we still perceive as beautiful, it's going to take a massive shift for our society until we start seeing it. Like, I guess I would equate it to when we first started wearing masks and how it looked so odd. And then all of a sudden it was the norm. So until we're seeing models of all heights, different sizes, everybody being embraced and like beautiful is all those things, I think it's going to take a bit for our perception to change because we have been brainwashed. I really believe that.
Yeah, and it really starts from the beginning. Like it starts from all phases. You don't have to be just a model or a dancer to confront this. You can also be a mom who has like a bigger kid who's just growing. Like oftentimes they go through a phase where they get a little pudgy and then boom, they're off to a growth spurt. But when a mom then confronts another mom or another caregiver about that child, it's the job of the mother of the child to speak up and be like, you know what, I love my child's thought process. He is so caring. He is so giving. There's so much more to him than just his body type. So I'd appreciate if you would not converse about that. Because we do need to switch as a society from focusing on the physical to really what the whole person looks like and the beauty that the whole person brings.
100%. I'm so excited to continue this conversation with you because I have so much to like chat with you about and ask questions. But on that note, Amanda, we're going to just take a brief pause and we'll be right back with iTalk New Wave. Hi, welcome back. So we are talking about body confidence and food and the relationships with amazing Amanda. Amanda, I wanted to ask you a question. What does it look like when you don't have body confidence? And what are the forms that shows up in?
A ton of things contribute to our health and how we view our body. And really the bottom line is, as a health pro, I need to have that like holistic perspective when moving people towards health. I can't like view a diet plan or weight goal. Like I can't believe that could fix this issue because it's oftentimes a lot more deep than that. We need to focus on how we got to that point, how people have got to that point. Diet and weight are tiny little factors in that. And the larger issue at hand is body confidence, like striving to get it. Oftentimes our genetics play into that, our environment, our social inequities, your psychology, your stress levels, your food fears, why you want to control food, you really name it. So there's a ton of stuff that play into body confidence as a professional that we have to focus on. And so oftentimes, to bring this point home, how all these factors kind of play into body confidence, I often talk about how your body is a thermostat. You say you start out at a 65 degrees Fahrenheit and 18, I think is close to like 18.3 degrees Celsius. And you want to keep it within around that temperature. Well, your body weight also has what's called a set point, a weight range where it likes to stay at. And everybody's weight range is totally different. And so say we starve ourselves or and we end up having the temperature go way down. If we think of it like a thermostat, the heat will start blasting on until it reaches that set point range again. And two, say we kind of increase our weight to an extreme amount in a very short amount of time, our body again is going to turn on a cooler and really bring us back down in an extreme fashion, back down to that 65-degree temperatures. And so our body feels that tug and pull of yo-yo dieting, and it can be super harmful. We have an ideal weight range where our body is set, like I said, and a certain amount of body weight suits our brain. And so that temperature control, that's our temperature control center. So if we're eating enough food, we should be able to respond to hunger and fullness. We should be getting enough movement and feel like we're capable of getting enough movement. We should be feeling like we have enough energy to care for ourselves. You naturally won't be fixated on food. And probably that's how you really know if you're within that set point. But that weight, again, could be classified as thin, fat, or anything in between. And so as a dietitian, I can't believe that one body type suits all. Now, honestly, not having body confidence is when you might be outside that range. Biology takes over, and you could lose a sense of hunger and satiety. You could really have negative thoughts about your body and yourself. You oftentimes don't have the energy or to do any type of activity when we're talking about physical activity or even a sex drive. And so you find yourself in kind of a self-hatred, numb state. And oftentimes you also have some behaviors that go along with it. Like you might pinch your stomach and think it's so fat. You might despise your cellulite. You might hate your body type. You probably have gone on a couple of diets. And so body confidence really is oftentimes, whether it's like very obvious or just internally with your mentality, it's my role as a dietitian to really find where that confidence needs to amp up a bit. And for each person, it really looks different.
My mind is blown. You have articulated that in ways that I couldn't fathom. Amanda, that's so on point. I have a few questions for you. One question I want to have for our audience, because you're so articulate, you're so wise, you're so knowledgeable. Where the heck can they find you to follow you? Because you're amazing.
Yeah, so on all my social media pages, I also have some of my direct contact information. So at Manny B. Frankeny is where you can find me on all the social points, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
That's awesome. Amanda, I actually wanted to ask you something about the set point, but we're going to just take a quick break, I wanted to ask you when we come back, if you could elaborate on this, is if someone starts to notice that their hunger cues are going down, is that a sign that maybe their body is trying to regulate something? If you could expand on that after we take our break, that would be really amazing.
You bet.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to take a pause with I Talk Italian, New Wave. Hi, welcome back to I Talk Italian. I'm your host, Shawna Patruno, and you can find me on platforms such as Reawakening Beauty and Shawna Patruno on Instagram. So I'm actually here with Amanda Frankeny, and we were talking about body confidence and a little bit about what that looks like. And one of the things that I was very curious about in the last segment is she talked about a set point and a body thermostat. And she said sometimes your body will kind of do things to keep you at that biology, like your biology clock. I don't know how to say that properly. You had a much more eloquent way of saying it, but keeping you where you're supposed to be. Now, if someone like I'll be transparent, I've struggled with an eating disorder and not knowing in the past. I'm in recovery or recovered, whatever you want to call it. But when someone is transitioning out of that, Amanda, when do they know how to trust their body versus like, how do they get the body confidence? How does that work for them? Like maybe if they had a tendency to overeat or undereat, how do we find that?
Yeah, it's definitely a process, and that process looks different for everyone. However, really underlying a lot of eating disorders, whichever end of the spectrum you might land on, you start the process by allowing yourself to have any type of food. So you're kind of stepping back and realizing, hey, I don't have control here, and that's okay. Your body can have control. And once you give yourself an allowance that you can have any food, you honestly grow from there. And along with allowing yourself to have any food, it might feel really uncomfortable, and allowing yourself to go through the emotions of like, I'm eating this food right now. This makes me have a ton of energy. Maybe I should continue eating this. Or once you start eating a food that might, or maybe over consuming a food, because once you allow yourself to have food, oftentimes people go through a need for more and more and more because maybe of addictive patterns in the past or how they used food in the past. Well, rather than turning back towards disordered eating, we're asking people to be really positive and curious. Like, hey, I did this today. Maybe I overconsumed a little bit. Why did I do that? Rather than going through the cycle of like, I'm a horrible person. Why the heck did I do this? I deserve to be punished. I'm going to go back into my eating disorder. So we're kind of pivoting that mentality and that cycle so that there's a more positive and curious perspective surrounding the food. Once you've kind of gained an understanding of just the comfort of like, you know what your body needs and when, and you will continue this positive curiosity process, you kind of gain more and more confidence in what you're capable of doing, and you just see people do miraculous thing within the sphere.
Oh, I love you, by the way. I love the way you look at food. You're just so awesome. Honestly, like I've had talks with so many different people, and like way to allow people to take their power back. Can I say it's so funny because the control goes out the window, but you're saying, hey, let's take your power back. And it's the food doesn't have the power. You know what I mean? And even if you're not
Yeah.
perfect, you're still okay. And that is like friggin' the best thing anyone going through life could say. So there's no good. So you don't idealize good and bad foods at all, do you?
No, everything can fit. Yeah. And there's no room for shaming. There's no room for that. Really being soft with yourself and gentle, because like you deserve that respect. And that, I believe, like you said, that's what gives you your power. Like being gentle with yourself is really, really important.
I find it fascinating because once you do allow yourself to kind of have that wiggle room over time, you also find out what foods make you energized and what foods, like for myself, I've gone through, like I remember not thinking like I could have cupcakes and not thinking like this is a bad food, like carbs are bad, this is bad. But I started to experiment when I went through my process of recovery, and everybody's recovery or journey with food is so different. Like mine will not be the same as the next person's, like you said, but it was just like this weird relating process. And then you find foods that make you feel good. But even when you get into recovery, and I don't know if this is for some of your clients, do you find people still doubt whether they're doing it because of the way other people perceive what they're doing? Is that something that you have with some of your
Mhm.
clients?
Yeah, I mean, that's something to confront on a regular basis for sure. I think like body insecurities, it's not your path isn't always straight. It doesn't look like the next person. When you're dealing with body insecurities, like the ones we're kind of discussing, like oftentimes people who start out with low self-esteem, they basically measure against outside standards very often, way more often than someone with positive self-esteem and really self-confidence. And so I hope to be the guiding force to help people understand, like, hey, we don't need to go through this outside comparison. We're working on ourselves, and we need to focus on who you are and how your recovery looks like and how you can have confidence in that. And so it's kind of a refocus on one's journey
That's
that needs to
amazing.
happen.
I love it. Amanda, so I'm so excited. We have more segments to do, but like if someone was struggling with body confidence, how can they work with you before we hit our pause?
Yeah. So you can contact me. You can actually go to all my socials at Manny B. Frankeny, and you can find my direct contact there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll just be right back with I Talk Italian New Wave. I'm your host, Shawna Patruno. Welcome back. So we are talking with Amanda we were talking about body confidence, nutrition, set point, a bunch of really interesting topics with weight, media. And Amanda, I was just wondering what got you started on your journey becoming a nutritionist and all these different things you do. Like I know there's probably something that was like, where was the passion, the fire that keeps you on this path to like working all the amazing things that you're doing?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it stems from a personal journey with my relationship with food, stemming from like an eating disorder background, and then finally coming through and finding confidence in eating anything and everything in the right amounts for me. Um, that has given me confidence to speak this truth to other people, other individuals who might be struggling with it too. Because I often say, I honestly love myself. I believe I'm extremely beautiful inside and out, and I want to share that opportunity with other people, and allow them to have that journey to accomplish that too. Because everybody can be in this space of loving oneself, both physically, emotionally, and even spiritually.
That's amazing. How long would you say your journey took to get to that place? Was it a couple months doing this protocol? Was it a couple years? Is it something ongoing that you're still continuing to do? Or, well, obviously you're there, like you have that confidence, you love yourself, but what did that look like for you? Was it something like it was a one and done or something that took some time?
Oh, it's an everyday thing. I don't question, I don't think food comes into play with us anymore, but on a daily basis, I'm very intentional about positive mantras and positive feedback, identifying any spaces in my life that kind of pull and stretch me in ways that might be too much, and then reducing that, like those types of stressors, and then identifying spaces where I can really feed myself, in all the realms of my life. And so I would say it's a daily practice. With the food journey, I think everybody is completely different. I don't think there's one right or wrong path to go through, and it might take someone a couple of years and might take someone months at a time. So to identify that in myself, I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't even remember those days.
That's amazing. I think that's incredibly insightful to know that it is a journey. So many times I've heard people think like, I don't know, I've gone through my own stuff and come out of like treatment or something, and they were like, so you're recovered. And it's like, no, I'm not. But it's just getting to the root of that. And I love that through teaching people how to have a healthy balance with food, you're actually saying, you know, what the core value is here. And this is what I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is self-love, self-compassion, and a good mental diet is actually how you're going to have body confidence and learn how to fuel yourself, essentially. And I think that those things are pivotal, because I think so many people come and say, they do it backwards. They say, when I have this beautiful body, this bikini body, then I will feel good about myself. And you say, hey, no, how about we work on your mental diet? And then we learn to love your body. And it's a very powerful thing. It's saying, love yourself right now and the rest will follow. And I think,
Preach.
yes. So I think that we've got, our world is so backwards. And that's why I kept saying, Amanda, I love you having you on the show, because you get it. You get it happens. Everything happens in the mind and it transcends forward. And I could honestly chat for hours with you on this topic, but it's like, people are not understanding that there is a reason why you're going to an extreme, or a reason why you can't push past that barrier. And it has nothing to do with your bad dieter, you like it, none of that. It's that mental self-esteem, body confidence, if you will. And I haven't heard people talk about nutrition like this. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
I think too, like it shouldn't go unnoticed. A lot of my work has actually been in the community. And so it's about the collective group of people who might be interested in food, nutrition, food access, psychology behind food, doctors who are interested in your vitals, other dietitians, maybe some family members that really buy into your like mental well-being. I believe that any type of healing and recovery you might go through takes a village. It's not an independent process. We're not only focusing on your inner self, but we're focusing on the sphere that surrounds you. And hopefully by focusing on your inner self, you can really like blossom that positivity to all of those, and constructive feedback. Like hopefully you can receive constructive feedback from that village that supports your recovery. So yeah, I do believe in like the dietitian's role, but it's really everybody involved. And it can be such a dynamic, awesome team.
Yeah, like making that, those food choices fun, and like creating that like sociology part, ironically, like you're creating like a environment, like a little ecosystem for well-being. It's kind of cool the way you've approached it. I hope I'm summarizing that correctly.
You are.
Awesome. So we're gonna just take a pause on that note, Amanda. We'll be back with I Talk Italian, New Wave. I'm your host, Shawna Patruno. Hi, welcome back to I Talk Italian, New Wave. I'm your host, Shawna Patruno. So we are wrapping up our conversation, and it was a good one. It was body confidence, how to love your body, the transition, mental diet, all of these things with Amanda. And Amanda, I know you're really excited to share some tips, like you're all about giving value. I know you wanted to share about 3 tips on body confidence. Could you do that for our audience today?
You betcha. The first is really like to choose to respect and normalize your body and all the different kinds of bodies out there, regardless of what they look like. Once you dump the hate for your own body and kind of reclaim that joy, you'll be eating well for yourself on all the levels that we talked about, spiritually, mentally, and physically. Second, use your nutritional knowledge to enjoy life and get curious versus allowing it to control what you eat and don't eat, and experiment with food that makes you feel good or anywhere in between. Find food that keeps you regular and makes you feel energized, and when you mess up, give yourself a break and provide totally compassionate self-care. And then lastly, sometimes when you're trying to love your body, you'll look at yourself and wish you were different. And that's totally okay to feel that way. Change takes time, and remain curious throughout that process again.
I love that. So you're opening the mind to so many different ways of thinking, Amanda. Um, can I ask you one question? What is your favorite way that you practice body confidence and self-compassion?
I That's a great question and a stumper. Um, yeah, I now just really am intentional about identifying any negative thoughts internally or identifying stressors externally. And so um, I identify those stressors and kind of automatically redirect to a more positive mindset or a more empowering mindset. It doesn't have to be positive per se. And I don't allow myself to go down negative whirlwinds. I think too, I enjoy the good, bad, and ugly. And so, regardless of my situation, I find joy within it. And so, yeah, I intentionally seek joy regardless of my circumstance.
That's amazing. You have a very mindfulness approach to it, which is so funny because I'm all about mindfulness. And I don't know if you know that what you're practicing is like very typical of mindfulness, embracing the ugliness or quote unquote bad. That's a very like mindful Buddhist, you know what I mean? It's everything has
Mm-hmm.
a place and like that duality stuff. And I mean, I think that you've definitely encompassed an amazing equilibrium to help people with that. Once you can practice that for yourself, you can share in authenticity. So it's really cool to see you doing that. I just wanted to thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm super passionate about all of these issues and empowering people to feel good in their body and feel confident. So thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. Just before we sign off, Amanda, where can they find you again?
Yeah, on all my socials, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Manny B. Frankeny.
Awesome. And if you guys got value from our show today, I Talk Italian New Wave, I'm your host, Shawna Patruno. Or if you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to me or Amanda. Maybe there's something you would like to have us talk about further down the road. But this show is for you to empower you to love your body inside and out, make mindfulness sexy, and all those things in between. So I wish you guys all a wonderful day. And thank you for tuning in to listen to I Talk Italian New Wave.